it has been, like I said before, one of the most impactful classes I took at UW. Now, I say at the start, I was very, I had some walls up. I was a little bit like, I know how to solve problems. I know how to solve stuff. Why do I need to learn how to design things and solve problems? I use the lessons from this class weekly at my job. I've had a very successful first couple of years, and I would owe a lot of credit to it. And a lot of people more senior than me at my company ask me like, hey man, how did you really understood that problem? You really understood like what was actually going on. We thought we were focusing on the right problem, but you could see the big picture. And it's not that I have just this crazy experience and I'm 40 years old, I've seen this 20 times before, and that's why I saw the big picture. It's because there's actual methods when it comes to solving problems. And that was one of the cool things about the class was everyone's very eager to get to designing the solution. That's the fun part, right? It's frustrating sometimes to sit with the problem and to sit with the problem for a long time and to talk to people that the problem affects and understand the frustrations, the pain points. That's not something we naturally do. It makes sense when we say it out loud, like of course you should care about who this problem affects. But to actually delay the fun part and sit with the problem, that is so unbelievably important when it comes to solving problems, especially in the corporate world. Because everyone is so solution focused. I see it all over the place. Everyone is like, let's automate this, let's do AI there, like let's, everyone loves to have a solution and then go find the problems for it. And you can do that. You can make a lot of money doing that. But that is a very difficult, it's not a very sustainable way to go about it, especially in the industry of consulting. If you can be an expert problem solver, not just a solution giver, you will have so much more success. And it's not just necessarily in the world of consulting. This is everything. Any kind of problem that you need to solve. If you can really, really sit with the problem for a bit, you'll understand what's actually going wrong. What is actually the problem here? Because normally when you first think about the problem, it's, maybe that accurate, but it's not the whole picture. So when people say, man, Andrew, you can really understand the whole picture, it's like, yeah, because I've spent the first 30 minutes of this meeting thinking about the problem, and you guys are already talking about solutions, and we can automate this, or we need to like really fix this, and it's like, y'all, you need to take a step back. You've overcommitted in that direction, and clients especially, they overcommit in one direction, and the reason that we get brought in as consultants is we're the ones that say, hey, we know you've invested in that solution. We know you think that's what the problem is. But let's think about it like this. Like, let's take a step back, disconnect a little bit from that solution, and really understand the problem. From there, you can really solve it. Once you sit with the problem for a long time, you can really solve it. And then the other thing I really took away from this class was, going back to the Crayola markers, was iterating through your solutions. Again, people really love to solve, to create solutions. However, people get so emotionally invested in creating those solutions, you get your head down, you get tunnel vision, and while that might be the easiest and fun way to go about it, it might not be the best way to solve the problem. So that's something that I apply in my work is, as we start going through solutions, like let's look at a first draft and let's not spend 2 weeks coming up with it. Let's spend 10 minutes. And then let's do a little bit of feedback. Let's talk about it. What do we like? What do we don't? Okay, cool. Let's spend another 10 minutes talking through a certain area of it. What do we like? What do we don't? And then iterate again and again and again and again. And a lot of people, that's the higher effort route to go. It's a lot easier to just say, I'll handle this problem. Just, I'm gonna put the blinders on, and focus on it. It's like you will get lucky here and there and end up at the perfect solution. But many times you will miss your target, but you will end up where you were aiming. And the whole point of solving problems is to solve the problem, not make a solution, right? Solutions are to solve the problem, and when you pair those two things together of really sitting with the problem, understanding it, and then iterating over your solutions, not only will you create solutions that last. That's a big thing that happens, is people solve problems in the short term, but then all of a sudden something changes and, well, the solution worked when everything was, very stable and all the things you sort of focused on stay the same. But as soon as things change, the solution starts to get really weak. But if you really understood the problem from a big picture, then your solution is going to be a bit more durable. And then when you're also iterating through the solutioning phase and designing it, that is very helpful when it comes to creating these durable solutions, things that last. Because the whole point of problem solving is because we're trying to accomplish something else, and this problem's kind of getting in the way. It's a risk, it's actively causing a problem, or maybe there isn't really necessarily a huge problem, but we're trying to really create some value and create this benefit here. So when you really, really iterate over the solutioning process, you end up having these more durable solutions, and you just have better outcomes. So that's kind of my spiel about how this class has really helped me, and I use it all the time. And it's amazing how many people think they're good at problem solving. They're really good at solutioning and creating a solution. But when that solution misses the problem, you don't actually have that good of a result. So that's my spiel, a bit about me, and a bit about how this class has impacted me with my work. It's a very positive impact, and it's definitely one of my favorite classes I've ever taken. Again, I started out a bit reluctant, didn't want to use those Crayola markers. I still have Sharpies in my bag today, still use it.
I'll bring some in a minute, because we're actually going to do some sketching. Any questions?
Yes, please, any questions about, and it doesn't have to be exactly what I talked about. It can be about consulting, it can be about nitty-gritty what I just talked about, but yeah, anything? Go ahead.
Has it ever happened that a client doesn't like the solution? What is that process like? You go back to the drawing board?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, okay, yeah, so the question was, does a client ever not like the solution? Yes, definitely. And is it frustrating? Yeah, because again, you build this emotional attachment to your solution, whether you want to or not. So it kind of, you can get offended, say, I think it's good, that's why I designed it the way I did. So it's easy for it to be a me against you situation. But one of the ways that I actually go about that process, and you do end up going back to the drawing board, is actually what I just said about understanding the problem. They don't like the solution, why? Is it the color that you don't like? Is it the data that we're looking at? Is it the way we present it? Because all those things can definitely be the reason why a client doesn't like the solution. Sometimes they're just having a crappy day. They hit their husband's car or partner's car or whatever when they were leaving for work. And they're like, I don't like the solution. And then you ask them the next day, they're like, yeah, that's actually pretty good. Let's move forward with it. So what I actually end up doing is, that's where you start that discovery phase. And that's where the professional role of consulting, that's why it's a professional role, is you are a problem solver. So if someone doesn't like something, let's figure out why. So yes, it happens a lot. And I see people struggle with that. They get offended and meeting kind of ends and no one's really happy. But if you can, have the conversation with the client and say, okay, why don't you like it? Get a little bit of feedback there. And then that's when you can start trying to tease out even more information, because sometimes they don't know why they don't like it. it's some kind of deeper feeling of, yeah, well, you know.
I think you and I talked about the fact that we have to do therapy, right?
Yeah,
A
that's
lot
it.
in the consulting, a lot of the time it's therapy.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Helping people understand their own problems. If they understood their own problems well enough, they'd have already solved it. So you have to also understand that about the dynamic is their struggle. Again, like therapy. No one goes to therapy because they understand the problem, but they just need someone to validate their solutions. It's like they're a bit lost. So your job is to provide a little bit of direction and guide them through. It's actually kind of amazing in consulting. Clients actually normally know what the solution is, but they don't know that they know it. So a lot of my job is just telling them what they already know and getting them to think about it in the right way. And then we land at the correct solution and the right outcome. And they're like, oh my God, Andrew, the brilliant solution, can't believe you came up with it. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, actually, you don't realize, but you're the one that came up with it. I just prompted you to end up here. So, very good question. Go
On
ahead.
average, how long does like solutions take to like come up with?
On average, how long does it take to come up with solutions? It certainly will depend on the scale of the problem. And you know, the complexity of it. If you're looking at, you know, a $100 billion company and they are wanting to revamp their cybersecurity program. You know, the problems, you can make it a pretty simple problem, cybersecurity is not good enough. But then, when it comes to coming up with a solution, you know, what's the next layer of it? Well, what parts of the cybersecurity program aren't working? You know, well, there's 10 different categories. Let's look at each category. What's not working in that, you know, pillar of the program? 5 more things. Well, why is that a problem? 5 more things. So the complexity very much will have a role, but per problem, it's actually not that long of a process. The part that becomes longer is, it takes a lot of effort to track all of that. And it's very easy to cut corners and say, you know, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people struggle with problem solving is because sitting in that problem space and really understanding it for a long time takes effort. And the eagerness to start solving it is really tempting. So if someone comes up with a solution a little too quickly, you're a little skeptical about that. Good question. Yep.
You heavily emphasize the problem-solving aspect of your job as opposed to creating a solution. Are there certain aspects or techniques that you employ to really draw in on solving that problem? Maybe something you learned from this course?
Yeah, so question was, when it comes to solving problems, what are the sort of ways and techniques of really drawing out the problem, studying the problem, right?
Yep.
Open-ended questions tend to be quite good, and being comfortable with silence. That's not very comfortable, is it? No, silence is super uncomfortable. And when you're having an interaction with a client, if you can be a little bit quiet and a little bit patient and you say, hey, what's the problem? They're gonna say, well, it's this. Well, they already had that answer figured out 3 weeks ago. And again, if they knew the solution and if they understood the problem, we wouldn't be here. So you ask them, what's the problem? Well, it's this. If you just wait and give it 2 or 3 seconds of silence, that awkwardness of the silence really, really has a powerful effect. They go, well, and then there's also this. It's like, okay, cool. Oh, and here's another technique, mirroring. I don't know if any of y'all have heard of this, but if someone says something to you, and you just repeat back what they said, that validates that you're listening, and they will keep going. Because they're eager to talk about what they're talking about, that's why they're talking about it. You know, so sit with a little bit of silence and they say, well, there's also this. Oh, really, there's that? Yeah, and actually, to tell you what, there's actually these other connected things. Well, there's other connected things? Oh my God, yeah. And I will have meetings where it's an hour-long meeting and the client will go on these crazy tangents and we have to finish the meeting. It's like, all right, we need to schedule another one because we actually didn't get to everything, but it was still such a valuable meeting because we thought there was one problem. There were 3 problems up on that layer. There were 2 more down in that layer. There was another one we didn't even know. And that is one of the really valuable pieces of this class is sit with the problem, study the problem. And again, I keep saying this, and I'll keep repeating it. It is so fun to create solutions. It isn't super fun to sit with the problem because you're so excited to get to that next stage. But if you can really, really sit with the problem, you're going to save time and your solution is going to work a lot better, and that's pretty fun. So, very good question. Anybody else?
So, you're here because you are pitching a capstone project?
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us more about this capstone project that you're pitching.
Yeah, so the capstone project that we're sponsoring this year is how to help small and medium businesses, enterprises, organizations, how to help them in their AI adoption journey. And the reason why it's actually a very similar problem to what the AI governance work that I'm doing is right now. We work with most of the Fortune 500 companies in the world, most of the Fortune 100 companies in the world, and they're struggling with this problem of how do we adopt AI? How do you do it safely, sustainably, durably, to where all the benefits that are going to come with it, we don't pick up the same amount of risk, or even more risk, right? Because what happens if you spend $100 million on some AI solutions, but then you end up landing a $500 million fine from the European Union? Probably would have been better to not get that solution. Or probably would have been better to spend, maybe $5 million and study the problems that come with AI. Understand the regulations, understand the concerns of customers, understand what could be coming down the line, understand the difficulties of user adoption, who's going to be using this tool. So the fact that this is something that the largest companies in the world are struggling to solve means that small companies that barely have an IT department, or a utility company that is publicly funded, they're really struggling to solve these problems because the companies with money are struggling to solve it. So the companies without the money, struggling even more. So the project is to help build some version of a dashboard of a website so that a small or medium business could go to it, input a little bit of data if they need to about their industry. If they're in the finance industry, the healthcare industry, there's more regulations, or maybe not. And, provide some input and then get a bit of guidance. Basically the tool, the dashboard, whatever the solution ends up being. And again, I haven't defined the solution because that would be really narrowing it down, but I'm really trying to provide the problem. That's kind of the point of starting out a capstone project is provide a problem and don't define the solution before you understand the problem. So the problem is how do you adopt AI? And the solution, well, you should really be focusing on these couple areas that are kind of already known problems with AI. Understanding regulations, understanding the risks of it, and then how do you go about solving that problem? How do you help businesses that haven't solved it, that don't know how to solve it, understand the problem so that they can, again, adopt AI and get the benefits of it without picking up a whole bunch of consequences at the same time.
Great. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Andrew for his time and his insights. Yeah.